Greetings. This is Positivologist Lynette Turner, and welcome to the Positivologist is in the house. So come on in, grab a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, sit in your favorite chair or couch, and thank you so much for joining me. You can connect with me on www.positivebliss.com. So this show focuses on living a life of positivity. And this doesn't say that we don't have stress, we don't have issues or problems in our lives, because we do, but we also have the opportunity each and every day when we get up to have a positive perspective as we move forward. You know, there might be traffic on the highway, we might have a bad hair day, not a problem. Just go with the flow. So I'm delighted because I have amazing guests on the show, and I'm super delighted tonight because my guest is going to give us not one, not two, but she has up to 52 tips that can really help us live the most engaging, positive, connected, happy life possible. Her name is Deanne Mincer. Hi, Deanne.
Hi,
I'm
Lynette.
so delighted. I told her I just want to climb to the screen and go into her living room where she's sitting because it looks so cozy and comfortable.
Well, I feel like you're here with me right
Yes,
now.
yes, we are connected. We are
Oh, we
connected.
are connected for sure through the
So
heart.
we have so much to talk about in an hour. The first thing I was thinking when I read she has a wonderful book here, which you're going to be talking about, the 52. Um, and I just was reading this book, and I was like, I want to talk about every single thing on the book. How can we possibly do that? But we're going to give it a shot and talk about certainly a large number of them. But for now, this amazing yoga person, embracer of Course of Miracles, lover of Rumi, as am I. We have a lot in common, we found out. I'm going to turn it over to her, and she's going to help get us all in a great space to spend this time together, and she's going to tell us all about her wonderful self. So, Deanne, I turn it over to you, and again, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much. I am really honored to be here with you. I really am delighted. Let me just say that whenever I give talks and have workshops, what I usually like to do is give us all an opportunity to come to a place where we can turn inward instead of outward. Most of us spend most of our time in the exterior world, involved in all of the senses, what we see, what we hear, everything that's going on. And so I thought we might just spend maybe a minute, not in meditation, because meditation would not be good television. It's kind of hard to watch people meditate.
And I might go to sleep because your voice is so relaxing, your CD of meditation, very
Oh,
relaxing.
yes.
So, yeah.
I don't want you to go to sleep. That's not the idea. It would not be a good thing. Not a good thing. So here's what we're going to do. Let's just for a moment focus on our bodies and just notice how your body can begin to relax. Feel if there are any spaces that feel a little tight. Let your shoulders release. Feel as if your whole body, inside and outside, is being washed over by a beautiful, soft, warm liquid that just calms you and all of the stress flows away at your feet. Now pay attention for a few moments to your breath. Notice how your breath is flowing. See if it's a little agitated or if it has little ripples in it. Just see if you can smooth out a little more. Let it smooth out and inhale and exhale and imagine that you're inhaling love and exhaling any confusion or gas in your life. Now we're going to turn to the mind. Most of us in the West, especially, get very caught up in our minds. We are used to the Newtonian idea of analysis, left brain thinking, but we really don't have to do that because it is only through the heart that we see clearly, which is from the Little Prince, a wonderful book by Saint-Exupéry. And so we will see through our hearts rather than through our minds. And so let your mind relax. And I like to quote, as Lynette said, we're both great fans of Rumi. He lived in the 1200s, and he was a great Sufi master of divine love. And he said, beyond thoughts of wrongdoing and right doing, there is feeling. I'll meet you there. That's where I would like us to meet, and that's where I hope we can be this evening as we come together and share ideas about loving ourselves.
Mm.
So relax.
Wonderful. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. Oh, I'm glad you like that. So this is what I would like to do. First, I should tell you that all of my teachings are grounded in the steadfast belief that each of us is the light of divine and eternal love, and that we can, if we wish to, come to know that truth in this lifetime. If you believe in reincarnation, maybe you don't have to live another 100 lives to know. Right now, if you don't believe in reincarnation, you don't have to think that in this life, if you don't get it, it's going to be over. Because life is eternal. So the 52, Lynette wants me to talk about the 52.
Yes.
Bring it over here just because I want you to see the butterfly on the cover.
Yes, I'm interested in the significance of that butterfly.
Yes. Well, the butterfly has a great meaning to me on many levels. We know that the butterfly doesn't start as a butterfly. It's a caterpillar and it crawls on the earth. And then through mysteries and beautiful miracle, it forms a cocoon. And inside that cocoon, it suddenly, all by itself, in its quiet little way, a little bit like we might transform also. We might go into a little cocoon as we're changing. All of a sudden, the butterfly emerges from that cocoon. It's quite a remarkable thing. And I see the butterfly as flying towards the light.
Oh, yes, yes.
Which is what we all want to do, fly towards the light.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I called the book The 52, Discovering the True You in 52 Simple Lessons. And there are two reasons for that. One is, I've been teaching yoga for a very long time, and my teaching has always been very spiritual. My work is based on studying the most ancient spiritual beliefs and writings in the entire world, which come from yoga in Sanskrit. It is a profound teaching, but also aligns with the Course which is only 50 years old and is a contemporary book. And then, of course, I adore Rumi, and I had a very special experience with Rumi when I was at the shrine in Konya, Turkey. So I called it the 52 because my blog was 52 weeks long. And so I wanted to call it the 52, but I also know that for most of us, change is incremental. Most of us, while we could have a great transformation and suddenly know everything and be enlightened, wouldn't that be fun?
You just wake up one day and like, oh, I'm enlightened.
It's the Eckhart Tolle experience.
Yes.
But for most of it's incremental. And so there's one lesson a week for 52 weeks. Now, I called it Discovering the True You. And what is the true you? Most of us define ourselves by exterior sources of information.
The jobs we have,
And
somebody's mother, that sort of thing.
yeah, I'm not good enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not educated enough. We define ourselves, or we say, oh, I'm so rich and so beautiful, and so whatever we might say.
Right.
But that's all exterior. The true you is something way beyond any of that, and it is from the heart of love that we come to know that. And so in yoga, what we say is you can choose between the true you, which is everything that is beautiful and perfect and loving about you, which is who you are.
Right.
Or you can define yourself by the ego.
Right.
Now, the ego is everything, not the Freud ego, this is not the same. It's everything that we might consider to be negative.
Right.
In the same way, that's what A Course in Miracles does, It says you can choose love or choose fear, but you can't choose both at the same time.
Right. So let's choose love, people.
Yeah. It's an easy choice.
It's like,
Something else.
which one should I choose? For me,
I don't.
not so hard a decision. So
Hmm.
Dan, I know that yoga is really an integral part of your life. What was there a turning point that led you to be open to yoga and then to embrace it so fully, and now to help so many other people understand the power of yoga?
Well, it's an interesting thing for me. I embraced yoga because I knew that it was very calming and it allowed me to feel very together. But I really embraced it initially because of the postures. Only when I did my training at the Himalayan Institute, it was a really rigid program. It was tough. This was almost 30 years ago. I mean, it's not like you go for the weekend to become a yoga teacher. This
Right.
was really the program. And so what I found was that I loved the spiritual part of it, which shocked me because I was kind of a skeptic. I mean, I had spent many years as in a Christian household when I was young, and then I disavowed that. That. I went as far as to say, God, what do you mean God is bad? Never was a God in the first place. Now, to me, it's the most important thing there is because I define God as love. Love is God. And so I'm a bhakti yogi. A bhakti is one who is more joyous about love than anything there is. But what happened along the way is I had a lot of experiences that I can only describe as mystical. And I did not anticipate that these would happen, but they are what really has altered my life completely and has driven me towards, first of all, writing this book and creating that state of divine love, which is
Yeah.
a direct experience.
No, absolutely. Well, I'm completely intrigued by the mystical experience that has to do with Rumi. Is that something that you can share? I mean, I'm just like, wow,
I
that's
know,
got to be
I know.
amazing. Well, first, maybe you can tell our viewers a little bit about Rumi in case they don't know.
Well, sure. Rumi was a Sufi scholar, and he lived in the 1200s. He came from a family of Sufi scholars. Sufis are Muslims who embrace from the heart. They are mystical Muslims. And he lived in Turkey, and he had many students who followed him. And and all of a sudden, he was out one day. This is how the story goes. And he came upon a man whose name was Shams. And Shams asked him a question. He didn't know Shams. Shams was a mystic, and he asked him a question, asked Rumi a question, and the result was so profound that Rumi was completely transformed and followed Shams as his teacher. He became a bhakti yogi, is what he became. He became one totally connected to the mystical and to love. Now, the odd thing is that for Rumi, Shams disappeared at one point. There are all kinds of stories about who was free. What happened was Rumi knew all of the scholarly teachings, but he didn't know it from his heart. But Shams taught him to know it from his heart. Now, and so from his grief at Shams leaving, he formed the Whirling Dervishes. And I mean, he began to circle, and his poetry came from that grief, completely from that grief. And his poetry came out in perfect harmony and rhythm, and it was just a miracle. And so, just to tell you about Rumi, I want to backtrack for just a moment.
Oh, please, yeah.
Here's what happened. I was teaching yoga and I was teaching all of my spiritual beliefs, but I didn't necessarily, like Rumi, know them from my heart. I knew what they were as more intellectual because that's what drew me. I mean, I still was kind of left brain. And so
we all start there. Hopefully, we all make it to the other side.
And what happened was I met this through many coincidences. There are no coincidences,
right.
But I met this most wonderful person who came to Ridgefield, Connecticut, which is where I live, which is where I am right now. And she was a follower of a certain guru. And she kind of told me a little bit about her, but I didn't know really much about her. And my friend Gretchen said, well, if you ever want to meet her, come with me because I go there almost every day, an hour and a half or 2 hours away, to chant with her. And so one day I said, well, I think I'll go with you. And this guru was known to be able to give something called Shakti time. Shakti, it's a kind of like an awakening of the Kundalini, an awakening of wisdom, enlightenment, an awakening. And so I went with Gretchen, and we went there, and we spent the whole day. And I said, oh, it was nice, Gretchen. It was really wonderful. All these thousands of people were there. I said, but nothing happened. She said, no problem. Don't worry. So about 3 weeks later, my husband and I were in London, and we were in this hotel room. And it was morning, and I woke up, and something happened. I got the Shakti Cup. Something happened, and I heard a voice tell me something that so profoundly changed my life. I knew it would never be the same again. I couldn't. It was not unlike what Eckhart Tolle describes, except I don't think he had written about his at that point, and it was.
And did you feel something physically as well?
What I felt was the most exquisite peace and calm and love and acceptance that I had ever experienced in my life. I didn't even understand what the message was. It was a male speaking words to me. I didn't know what they meant, and it took years for me to know. But to go back to Rumi, a few months later, it happened that my husband and I were taking a trip, and we were going to Turkey. And you remember enough attention to this trip because I was working at a job as a consultant for as an alternative health and television situation. And so we went to Turkey, and we went to Konya, Turkey, which is where Rumi lived, and that's where his shrine is. But I didn't know anything about Rumi, really. And the guide on the tour said, he was telling us all about this man he called the Mevlana. He never said anything but the Mevlana, which means the master. They don't call him Rumi in Turkey. They call him the Mevlana.
Oh.
So I'm listening to this, and I thought, what? This sounds like really, I was already chanting my mantra all the time, like the whole time. I was already, I was gone. I was gone, but I didn't know it. And so he told us all about this, and then they opened the doors to the shrine. And we walked in, and this is where Rumi is, and the other dervishes. We walked in, and this gigantic burst of energy that I knew was love was so huge. I didn't know what to make of it. I burst into tears. I was sobbing. Tears of joy. I was so thrilled.
Wonderful.
But I didn't know why, and I didn't know who this was, and I didn't know what was happening. And my poor husband was saying, honey, what's wrong with you?
Are you kidding?
You've gone crazy. And I was crazy with this feeling of ecstatic love. So it took me some time. There's a long story that goes with this, and I don't want to tell you all of that because it would take too long.
Right.
But it took me about a month to figure out that was actually Rumi who gave me that.
Right.
And after that, I just started to have this experience with him.
What an amazing gift.
It was.
Him to have that kind of presence and to be there and
guide him.
And his writings are just like, I'm an ordained interfaith minister, and one of my services was all Rumi, just sharing his messages and his guidance and everything. Very exciting. So before we go on, because we want to get to some of these chapters, can you tell people how they can reach you? Tell the people your website. We'll do it again at the end so that they can reach out to you if they'd like to.
Sure. Okay. I'm at deannemincer.com. I have a blog, which is at deannemincer.wordpress.com. And also, if people want to know about the book or the CD and read reviews and things like that, that's on Amazon. But those are the best ways to reach me. But I live in Connecticut. I'm doing a lot of speaking engagements, and email me. If you have a question, just email me.
Reach out to her, and she will reach back.
Here's what I see, and this is what I think is the gift of being a bhakti yogi and of being one completely absorbed in the heart. I don't see people as individual people. I mean, I really see a sea of love. And now, 6 hours a day, there may be some times when the ego creeps in. And maybe I don't always see that clearly, but I really try. And that's the choice. That's really about the choice that we make.
Every day we make that choice.
And, there's an interesting thing, I think, that, you asked about my chapters. The first chapter of the book is an affirmation. And it's really what I want people to do all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's to say to yourself, I love myself completely now. All the time. Even when you think, how could I? I just did something really stupid.
Right,
or I just said something I wish I hadn't said. If we don't love ourselves and give that love to ourselves, where do you think it's going to come from? From the exterior world?
Well, I think that's what people think or expect, but it's got to start in here. It's got to start with us.
It does. And, I can't do this because, I like to show how you can do applied kinesiology, which is really dramatic. It really shows how powerful love is.
Yeah.
It is so powerful that if you're thinking loving thoughts, nothing else is going to come in. I mean,
that's a great reminder. Great reminder, because I think we get so caught up in the everyday rhythm of life, and our to-do list, and running here and doing that, and we have to go to work, and I got to get to the airport. I mean, we just go, and I think we forget. And we can bring ourselves to that place, even in the most hectic. I was traveling recently, and there was all this chaos in the airport, and I was sitting at the gate, and I had my earphones on, and I had my mantra going, and I was just like, everything's perfect.
Yeah, isn't that great?
We can do that any time.
Well, and I think that we're so used to being outwardly focused,
right?
That we embrace notions. And one of the parts of the book that I really like a lot is something I learned from Dr. Henry Grayson, who I studied with, and taught something about thought monitoring. And we don't even know we think these thoughts, but we think thoughts that we learned maybe before we were verbal, before we even remember and process. If somebody said you're stupid, or oh, you're not any good, or it could have been anyone. It could have been a playmate. It could have been a parent. It could have been anyone. We hold on to those things, and we, of course, have, I think Deepak Chopra says, 72,000 thoughts a day.
A lot of things going on in there.
Yeah, a lot of wasted time, I would say.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, Deanna, what I want to do, because we got like half hour left, and there's just so much good stuff in the book. So my challenge was, I said, okay, we have an hour. Which one of these chapters might I suggest we talk about? And I was like, oh, that one. Oh, that one. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the whole book. So I let some that just resonated with me in particular kind of come to the surface, and I made a list of them, and then you may have other ones. But I'm just going to mention them, and then have you maybe take us on a little journey about what that means, or what kind of advice you might give to people in terms of those particular ones. Sure. So I'm skipping around my list a little bit, but gratitude and happiness, so close to my heart. Gratitude is critical. Happiness, we both know dear Lionel Ketchian in common, the founder of the Happiness Club. Love him, love him, love him. So talk a bit about your chapter on that, on gratitude and happiness.
It's such an easy thing, actually. When I think about the idea of happiness, all you have to do is practice gratitude and love. And that comes to you naturally. Now, gratitude, it's an interesting thing, because there are so many different philosophies, as I know you know, Lynette, because you're a positivologist, you know all of this. I mean, most of us don't even recognize how many things we can be grateful for.
So true.
And it's like counting your blessings. I love that whole notion of, that song, the idea is, every day, if we are aware of the blessings and everything we can be grateful for. So, and this is not unique to me. I say, make a list, if not writing it down, just in your mind before you go to sleep at night, of 5, 10 things that you're grateful for. And sometimes if you're really having a hard time, maybe there's illness, maybe there's loss, maybe there's grief going on, if you, even if it's only to say, I'm grateful for this bed to sleep in, I'm grateful for this warm space, I'm grateful that I can think these thoughts. It could be the most small thing.
And I think that's important because sometimes I think people think it has to be some big, huge, monumental thing. But the little, I have a gratitude journal and I write in it in the morning, and it really focuses my energy for the day because I start with that, even if it's and if there's some challenge going on, I find that it might be harder for me to write it, but that's the day it's really important for me to take the time to do it. It really shifts your energy and sets the intention for the day.
And it also shows you how big your heart can be. It just is so nurturing and fulfilling. Now, I like the idea of also saying at the same time as a mantra every day, when you wake up, before you go to bed, I love myself completely now. That love is as important as gratitude. They go together. And, I think a lot of people think that happiness has to come from something extraneous or something big, as you just said, and it doesn't have to. And, there could be days when sometimes it's hard to find those. Could I tell you just something about this? This is in the book, but I don't know that it was one of the things you were focusing on. It's about pain. You say, every day, everybody has pain, everybody has things happen in their lives. It's not all just Pollyanna.
Right.
They happen. And there was a period of time in my life and this has a little to do with me, so I hope you will not mind my telling you.
Oh, of course not.
I used to think that people who were on the spiritual path, and let's say they were a little bit enlightened, I don't know. I used to think, they wouldn't have any pain. They wouldn't have any problems. Of course, the stories are legion about all of the people who have had pain, who are highly evolved spiritually. So, I was at a really hard time in my life, a really hard time. I was suffering a lot of grief. I had a lot of physical problems. I was teaching my classes, but I was depressed. My mother had recently departed the world, and I was very close to her. And she was beginning to speak to me a lot. But
so read her blog because it's wonderful to hear about the communication with your mother. But that's another whole show in itself.
So I was waiting for a student to come to my house, and the reason I'm telling you this is because you don't recognize what pain means, and sometimes it's a door opening, and it is there for a purpose. So I was waiting for a student, and I was, as I usually did, I was reading Rumi, of course, and there was something about the pain, and the rock will crack, and the rose will come up, and all of the light will come forward. Your wound is where the light enters, all of that sort of thing. And I'm reading this and I'm thinking, but I'm in so much pain a lot of the time. How can I be teaching and doing classes and having people come? If they knew how much pain
they're going to find out.
And so I saw that and I knew it was meant for me. That night I went to bed, and on my nightstand there was something that I got from that lineage of teachers of yoga who had given out who had a newsletter that came out. And I was reading it, and it said a Khalil Gibran quote, which is the bridge of the show that encloses your understanding. Now, I read that, and I thought, that's the same message I had earlier. Could that be? But I knew it was meant for me.
Right.
But I didn't get it. I really didn't get it. The next night, my husband and I went to a Chinese restaurant. I have to show this to you because it's hard to believe. This is the beautiful Rumi book. Anyway.
Oh, wow.
So here's the newsletter that I was reading. It said, your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. We went to a Chinese restaurant. I opened my fortune cookie.
I knew you were going to say that.
There it is. Your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding.
When the divine and the powers that be want to get our attention, they find a way.
And who would put that in a fortune cookie? I mean, you wouldn't have much of a business if you always did that.
Right.
But what I'm saying is to be accepting and in a state of equanimity, in a state of understanding, and it is neither good fortune or ill luck that defines us. We stay steady on the course with what is changeless, which is divine love.
You know, you just said the word change, and so and one of the chapters that intrigued me was chapter lesson 5. Something you are doing right now can change your life.
Yeah.
Talk a little about
Now,
that.
what would that be? Something you're doing constantly, as long as you live. Breathing. When I was studying to be a yoga teacher, I remember the teachers would say to us, if you can control your breath, you can control your life. I imagine that. My breath can control my life. But, you know, it's as easy as this. Pay attention to how you're breathing. If you're breathing in a high chest manner, up in the high chest, and you're not breathing fully, you're not oxygenating your body. You're not really relaxing your body. And and all of a sudden, everything changes. So, for example, take a break. You know, tie a string around your finger. Take a break and say, okay, I'm going to watch my breathing for 1 minute. Not too long. Could be 30 seconds, actually.
Yeah, and I put a message sometimes on my Outlook calendar at work with the word breathe in it. Because I know I'm just working away, I'm getting this done. All of a sudden it'll pop up. I'm like, that's right. Stop everything and do exactly what you're recommending.
It just brings down everything. It stops everything. It's like taking a moment of silence. You know, one time I sent this thing out, which they did in the Huffington Post, which was called Zapping Stress in 30 Seconds. And it was, you do these things in 30 seconds. You sit, let your shoulders relax, focus on your breath, you let your breath become elongated, you say a few words to yourself, peace, and I'm not really going to do it now, but you say a few words about peace, and you love yourself, and you know that everything's going to be fine. All of this stuff really works.
Yeah, and you know when you talk about this release, one of your chapters about releasing, being kind, forgiveness. Through kindness, you are lighter, happier.
Yes. Well, being kind is a simple thing that a lot of people don't recognize how easy that is. But forgiveness,
because it takes so much energy not to be kind. If you're like upset and
right.
Why use your energy that way when you can shift it towards the love energy?
Yeah, and you know, that's the choice again. If you choose anger or you choose anything else, we all do it. I mean, but if you choose love, it's just simple. You choose love, not fear, not anger. And one of the parts about that I think is really important is the notion of forgiveness. The forgiveness, of course, in Miracles. And it means not just forgiveness for other people. And it's not something you give as a sort of, because you're helping them. You're doing it for yourself.
Right.
Because, you know, it's that whole notion that when you're experiencing anger, you're drinking the poison and expecting the other person to die. Please, you know, that's not going to work.
Yeah, let's not go there, people.
You're poisoning yourself.
Yeah.
And so there's this expression, Mark Twain said, forgiveness is the fragrance the violet releases on the heel that just crushed it.
Ooh.
Think of that. I think it's one of the most
powerful.
Very powerful. But, you know, practicing forgiveness is not just for other people, it's for ourselves too.
Yeah.
Because if we don't do that, we're actually not really loving ourselves.
And it's also so much about when we practice forgiveness, it's so much about being in the moment, right? So if we're not practicing forgiveness,
Yes.
we're generally thinking about something somebody did that's past, that's over. Bringing it with us now, that's
Yeah.
gone. What we have is this moment. I always think whatever moment I'm in, even if it's a challenging moment, exactly where I'm supposed to be at that particular point in time. There's something I can
Right.
learn from it. If it's a challenging moment, if it's a wonderful moment like this one, I just get to be in the joy and bliss
Yeah.
of wonderful conversation and wonderful people, but to be right here, right now. And that goes into another chapter of yours that I like, which is like everything is perfect now, right? All is
Oh,
do nothing, all is perfect. I love
oh.
that.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
You can see I'm an ecstatic.
just
I love
23.
all of
Yes.
this. um, these are not original to me. I mean, these are the teachings. Somebody said you should write a book and call them the Dhyan Sutras. I laughed so hard. I thought, please, not
But
that.
they're great. They're such wonderful reminders, even if people have thought of them or maybe used to do it, but they don't anymore. It's great to have this sort of, reference guide
Oh,
that you can pick
yeah.
up and just be reminded of, the things we can do to live the most happy life possible. And that we have
I
a
am.
huge amount of choice in that.
Oh,
It's nobody else. It's no one else telling us what to do. It's us taking charge of our own lives and making that decision. So I love
that's,
that whole, we're perfect. Just be who you
that
are.
that's one of my students' favorite lessons when I started teaching that there is nothing to do. Everything is perfect just as it is. Well, I can tell you that was a light bulb going off when I heard that. Because I used to be a person who was compulsively involved with doing things. I figured if I was only doing three things, I really wasn't doing much. um,
Yeah.
and so when I would sit in meditation and I would say there is nothing to do, everything is perfect just as it is. That was a revolution to recognize that. And to recognize that everything is perfect because it's perfect in the light, perfect in consciousness, perfect in God. And I'm not judging that. I'm not judging that. Even if it doesn't feel perfect, it's perfect.
Right. Right. I mean, and I learned too that even if it doesn't feel perfect, if we say it feels that way and we let ourselves feel that energy, even if it's the whole kind of fake it till you make it thing, you'll start to believe that. You'll start to
Yes.
live your life that way, and it'll impact other people in a positive way. So I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I think it is. And the huge thing again about going back to choosing love, the more we love ourselves, the more love is expanded around us. And the
Right.
more other people experience that love. Now, I'm not saying you do this loving of yourself primarily so that other people will feel love, because it has to
Right.
emanate from you. It's an energy source. And but it's the answer. It is really the answer. That's the answer that Rumi found. That's the answer that A Course in Miracles found. That's the teachings of yoga 7,000 years ago. It
And
was said
love
then
is
too.
and love is energy, right? One of your chapters is about how you use your energy.
Yes, it is
How do you
absolutely,
use your energy?
yeah. And a lot of people don't recognize how powerful that is. They
But we
really
can
don't.
feel it, right? If we go into a room, we gravitate towards some people whose energy is alive and open and loving and kind, and someone else who's sort of scrunched over in a corner, clearly not very happy. And you kind of gravitate because it's all energy, right? It's all
It
energy.
is. Yeah, it is. And so, I mean, it increases your well-being, it increases your health, whatever on any level. Loving yourself is the most important thing. But it when I use it as an affirmation, of course, Louise Hay is the most famous person for using affirmations. But I have a really strong belief in them because when we say something, even if it's not true, it creates an energy. And so, even if you're feeling like don't really much right at the moment, if you say it, it creates an energy. And all of a sudden, your mind starts to say, oh, I think that might be true. I do love myself completely
Yeah,
now. And
yeah.
it,
I, mm. if we just, I mean, I have an exercise I have clients do. They have to go into the bathroom, like nobody's there, no one's going to see you, close the door, look in the mirror and say, I love you. And
Oh,
sometimes they'll say, I can't do it, I have to back, the rule of 21, go back in there, do it again, do it again. And eventually they'll believe it, and then I'll help them add on to it, say their own name, like, Lynette,
yeah,
I love you because you're a kind person, whatever that
right.
is. I've seen people literally transform by shifting their energy in that way into their
Exactly.
spirit
And what a
being.
blessing. That's such a blessing that you're doing that for people and giving that gift to them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
and
that
it's,
they
and it's
feel.
something that everybody should have. And yes, I know it can be hard. Some people have more hardships than other people, but again, we can always find something to be grateful for, and you know, it's just everywhere.
It
It's
is.
a beautiful butterfly. You love butterflies that we see, in the front yard. It's opened the door for somebody. There's just so many wonderful things to connect us with other people and with energy and with the energy of love. Um, you also talk in later chapters about compassionate thinking. I think
Oh,
compassion is really important. Do you include yourself in compassionate thinking? It's lesson 42.
yeah.
Wonderful question.
Well, a lot of times we have misinterpreted the notion of compassion. We think that compassion is something, and even the culture kind of says, oh, you should be compassionate to other people. Look at how wonderful that makes you. It's kind of the correct thing to do. But we
Hmm.
often forget, of course, that's a wonderful thing to do, but we often forget that we need to practice compassion for ourselves, because we often, I think about people who do so many things for other people. Lots of people do this, but they don't remember to take care of themselves because they get so many rewards from the exterior world,
Right, right.
other people, which is a wonderful thing to do. They're not taking care of themselves and they burn themselves out.
Are
So
you
the
talking to me directly? Are you giving me a certificate? Because sometimes I'm like that because if you're a person of service, which is I think we're all here to be of service, but it's very important for self-care. But there's certainly been times in my life where, and I thoroughly enjoy doing it. I'm volunteering at a food bank. I'm helping somebody who needs something. People call me. Being on the ministry team. I mean, all these things. And then there will sometimes it does come a point where I'm like, oh my gosh, exactly what you're saying. I need to give some self-care, some self-love, some self-compassion, and we need to take care of ourselves in order to be there for other people. Yeah.
Exactly. I learned that lesson really well because I was a caregiver for my mother for several years. And especially, she was 98 years old when she passed away.
Oh my.
Well, I would say when she transitioned.
And she graduated to the other side, as I say.
Exactly. Did she ever? Anyway, I read all of when she came to live with us full time. Um, she was 90s then. I remember reading all these books about. There wasn't a lot about caregiving then. Actually, there weren't many books a few years ago. But I tried to find whatever I could and read whatever I could. There weren't support groups or anything like that. But, they all said the caregiver must take care of the caregiver first. I went, I can do that. I'm a yoga teacher. I meditate. I know how to breathe. I can do that. Well, guess what? I was completely flabbergasted because the responsibility constantly was huge. And I
Yeah.
found that instead of taking the little breaks that I needed for myself or doing, there was so much that had to be done. I mean, she was very lucid. She didn't have dementia,
Hmm.
but her body was, she was old. Her body was kind of giving up.
Right, right.
And I did not take care of myself. And that was what resulted in your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. I mean, I just didn't know how to do that.
The lessons
And
we
more
learn.
practicing compassion, but not for myself.
Right, right. So we can all take a lesson from that.
Yeah, you take a
I have to
after
deviate just
that.
for a second and have you talk a little bit about your blog. I mean, we didn't say we were going to talk, but your blog is wonderful, and talk about this connection with your mother through her transition, and take a minute or so and and then I encourage everyone to go and read this wonderful narrative that you're sharing.
Well, I appreciate that. When I talked about how there were several very important events in my life that led me to writing the 52 and being very overt and speaking about my spiritual beliefs. And one was the experience of Shaktipat, the other was the experience with Rumi, and a couple of others. The pivotal moment that came for me was when my mother began to teach me everything she could about love and life being eternal. And she was not an overtly spiritual or religious person, not at all. Only when she was about to transition did miracles start happening around her that we were here to see because she was in our house. And what happened was, at the time that she made it very clear that she was in two places at one time while she was going through this process of leaving the body. She was speaking to people, who had already crossed over. She was talking about the life. She was talking about going home, though we had never referred to the afterlife or heaven, anything like that. It's home. We never did. But she was saying things, and at the moment that she stopped breathing, a tremendous miracle occurred, and we were there with her. I haven't written this in the blog yet. I was just alluding to it. But I knew my mother was wonderful. They had a great interaction with me. There were some miraculous things that happened with the guru. And sure enough, I would go out and I would beg for money. And I would say, don't be full yet. Just give me another day. Maybe, then it was a few more hours. But here's what happened. Shortly after my mother left her body, she began sending messages and signs and manifestations of her presence and her love to both my husband and to me. They began happening within days after her departure. It's been now more than 7 years since she left the world, and she still sends them. There have been literally hundreds, by now maybe thousands, of messages that have come in all different ways, that have been light and cheerful, and oftentimes to both my husband and me, one time even to an entire yoga class.
You know what?
Not present, but she made herself known.
Your chapter, Love is Divine and Beyond Reason, wholly connects to what you're saying. Just as you're saying that, it's like that chapter, Love is Divine and Beyond.
It is. It's beyond understanding. And so the person and the incident or the event that gave me the courage really to speak forth and come, because it's not always easy. A lot of people who know me didn't know I believed all of these things. And so it was really the enthusiasm of my mother. She so much wanted me to share this with people. I thought, Mom, okay, I will. Don't worry. I'm going to do it. And it's just quite remarkable. And she's very excited about this blog that I'm writing. And it's odd because she sends signals almost every time when I finish one. She sends this music on the radio. Now, this is crazy. But we listen to this classical channel, and we played this music at my mom, and it's Dvorak's Symphony from the New World, and it's this thing called, it's a piece that most people recognize, Going Home, I'm just going home. It's this piece that was put to music, to words, and we had a bagpiper play it at her memorial service, and it comes on the radio all of these times, and we say, I wonder if anybody else is hearing this, or are we the only ones?
I truly believe those on the other side, they have a way of letting themselves be known, and what an amazing, wonderful gift to have. To be open to that, because there is such sadness, and no matter how spiritual we are, we have this, this grief or pain when people cross over, but to know that, I love it. I have relatives and friends on the other side who are talking to me all the time. They give me messages to give other people.
Wow.
And it's just, to me, it's as normal as, getting up and driving in a car someplace. It's another avenue, another vibrational way for us to be connected.
And it's a great lesson.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
do
absolutely,
that. Um,
absolutely. You know, as I watch you, and you are so energetic and bubbly, and one of your chapters is called "Lighten Up."
oh,
That how laughter is, and I can see you just live that. I can see the light in you. I know you clearly love to laugh and appreciate life. So, we have you always were you always this way? Were you born happy and energetic and
well,
positive?
I don't know that I really was. I mean, I think that I've gone through various periods of my life that were not necessarily reflective of that at all.
Hmm.
But what I found that was one of the my most favorite things to do when I would teach yoga. And I would have these classes where we would. I don't teach laughter yoga. You know, that's a big thing now.
Yes, I know.
That's a wonderful thing. And um, but what I think people do is they get so serious, and also people think that the spiritual path is a serious thing. You know, you really must be serious and meditate and do this and do that.
Right.
And, you know, I had this one class, and I did write about it in the book, that people would bring in their jokes. And so my favorite spiritual joke was, what did the yogi say to the hot dog man? Um, Make me one with everything. And so when the yogi handed the hot dog man $20 and the hot dog man didn't give him any change, he said, "Where's my change?" And the hot dog man said, "Change comes from within." It's
That's
corny.
impressive for two reasons. Um, that you remember the whole, that you know that joke and that you remember the whole thing. Because I'm always like halfway through the joke, I forget the punchline.
Well, I usually do too.
That's very funny. Oh
but
my
but we
gosh.
need to laugh, and you know that releases great endorphins, and it makes us feel good. I and
Yeah,
and a lot of times when we get caught up in things, we forget to do that.
yeah.
And we just need to and
We need to do it. We really
enjoy
need to
and
do
to
it.
be.
You're talking about looking externally and everything. One of your other chapters that I made note of that I liked was the one about simplifying your life.
Oh, yeah.
Simplify, simplify, simplify. And how do we do that in a culture that's go, 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 or you want to do things, you're excited about life, you want to do things, but I mean, I had a week off recently, and part of the time when I had off, I literally went through my house. I gave 6 bags of clothes to Big Brothers Big Sisters. It felt so great. I can like look into my closet in their space. I was like, if I haven't worn it, if it doesn't fit anymore, if I think one day I'll like it again, it's gone. And I just felt it just felt wonderful. It felt like I was doing some simplifying, like as you recommend in your book.
Yeah, I think that that's a really important thing. And we have a tendency to accumulate or adding more, adding more. I must tell you that we're in the process of moving some, and we live in a great big old New England house, and we're going to be really simplifying. I mean, we're going to be moving things out for sure. But beyond even material items, simplifying our life is an important thing too. Um, I used to have these sort of bucket lists of things that I thought were important that I had to do or wanted to do, or I had to see this play or I had to try that restaurant. I suddenly realized this is never ending. It's not as if there aren't going to be a whole new list of all of these things. And I thought, why do I want to do all of that? It's really much easier to just be simple.
Yeah.
Just be. And that's an important thing. What you just said, I think is really important. All we have to do is be. There's nothing else. I mean, there's nothing else. And in fact, at one point when I was really teaching that about, you don't have to do anything, just be. I used to have all of these bees would be around me. It was the strangest thing when I would be teaching those lessons. There would be lots of bees all around. Not during the class, but I'd go outside and there would be bees everywhere. What? But that makes a really good point, I think, Lynette. We don't really have to do anything, become anything. prove anything, learn anything, study anything, accumulate anything, to be loved.
Can you just follow everybody around and just remind us of this?
Well, the good thing is you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
That's the wonderful thing. And it only takes making those choices. That's all you have to do. Now, I make it sound easy. And I can tell you, I can't do it all the time. I mean, there are
Right.
times it sounds like, oh, yeah, well, I never have any problems. Of course I do. But it's an attitude. And
It's how you deal with the problem, right? Because the same thing, because I'm a positivologist, people are always, oh, you must not have any problems, you must not have any issues. I said, I have all those things. I fall down, but the choice I make is to get back up and keep going versus just staying down. And we all have that choice.
Right.
I thought it was perfect that your last chapter is and finally and only love.
yeah,
Really getting
that
in
actually
mind.
is the only thing. There isn't anything else but, I mean, I completely believe that that is what the world is. Nothing but love.
Totally
Now,
love
that's it. And the more we see it that way and understand it, and the more we start to cut out a lot of other parts of our life that we addictively are connected to, things that are horrible, things that are frightening, things that are depressing. The more we recognize that love is really who we are, and that's really the only thing that matters. And we can make that choice whenever we want.
it. Yeah. Can you believe our hour's up?
No.
I would actually, in the future, love to have you back if you would be willing to come.
Oh, I would love
because
to.
There's so many gems in the book, and you just simply can't cover all of them in an hour. But I do want to encourage people again. I'm gonna put the book up again so people can see it, and so remind people again how they can read your blog, get your book, connect with you. Your website again?
Sure. Well, the book is available on Amazon, and my website is deannemincer.com. DeanneMincer. I can't believe I did that. And my blog is, well, you can get to my blog and to all of that information from my website. So, I mean, my only purpose and mission is to share love and to have people know that for themselves.
Well, I can't thank you enough for sharing love with us, sharing your
thank
expertise,
you.
your
Thank
sunny
you.
disposition. I'm just very energized and just very blessed to have met you, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so
Sure.
much.
Great,
Namaste.
great namaste. Great insight for all of the viewers.
Well, you're wonderful.
So, thank you. So I want to thank all of you out there for joining me again on the show. Remember, it's all about bliss. BLISS. Believe life is something special, because it is, and so are you. And I encourage you to connect with me on my website, www.positivebliss.com. You can sign up on my homepage for a free weekly positivity message, and who among us couldn't use a free positivity message, and encourage your friends to do the same. In the meantime, take a walk through the landscape of positivity. I'm sure you're going to absolutely love and enjoy the view. So until next time, it's Positivologist Lynette Turner saying have a great day, a great week, much gratitude, and namaste. I'll see you next time right here on The Positivologist is in the House.